bin Laden, pretty much the world was behind the United States going in and knocking out the Taliban. But nobody in the world expected them to appoint a former Exxon executive as the president. So it twists it.
Well, we have other wars. We have wars here in England. We have wars, where we can avoid even sending these kids to other countries. We have wars here. How to turn that around? How to turn the communities to start to communicate to each other, to start to see their...
Oh, in England itself?
Yes, not just England, in every country.
It's every country, really.
I don't mean just England, but I'm saying that we have wars here on the streets. We have a war at home, in the homes.
Yeah. It's a very gradual process, and a lot of it starts with the idea of education and realizing that what you're looking at in countries that tout the idea of wanting to be democratic is the only way democracy works is if you increase education.
Okay.
It's the only way it works. Jefferson was the founding fathers of the United States knew that there was no way democracy was going to work in the United States unless they really made it so that people really became educated in the process. So until that begins to happen, people can be sucked in. You keep people fearful and confused, and they're going to do harsh things to each other.
Can I say something?
Yes?
Because I've just heard probably the most negative. That's the most negative view of Buddhism I've ever heard.
What?
Everything you said.
Why?
Maybe it's just where I am in my worldview. My Buddhist teacher would say, if you're looking from your brow, and she calls it her brow, you would be able to observe what's going on.
Yes.
And you would have the wisdom not to get emotionally embroiled in day-to-day with your mother.
Right.
It's this idea that everyone, and even the children, I'm meeting so many awake, amazing young people today.
Right.
I don't agree that they're all binary. I think they've evolved in their brains way beyond that kind of...
Oh, that's there.
For everything to be in black and white. Young people, including my own daughter, my son,
sure,
they're complicated, they're awake, they're masters of their own energy. There's an enormous creativity coming up.
Yes.
It's coming up to balance all the crap that there was. And when I saw the election in America, I thought people voted for truth.
That's true.
And they saw a man of integrity that wanted to tell the truth.
Yes.
And 6 million more people voted for him
Yes.
than everyone else.
Right.
And the way that that's expressed, that you've expressed that tonight, perhaps it's just the way I would have expressed it very differently. And the hopefulness, somebody like Barack Obama, or the young people I see around me, or the amazing state of affairs of computers. Computers have literally changed the whole planet and the whole way that we join up all our news. We've revolutionised the truth in so many different ways. We've revolutionised creativity. My 6-year-old son tonight was on a computer designing a 3D aeroplane. That's not just binary. That's not just seeing the world in black and white. It's exposing and pulling out our brains and our potential and our creativity to a place it's never been before. Ever, ever, ever.
Yeah.
And we look and search for the truth in that.
That's true.
I would like to hear more of that. Because
Well, I mean,
I'm hopeful that we can stop war, because I'm hopeful that we reach our heart chakras and compassion. And when we do that, we have an opening that's of enormous respect for everything around us. And we don't want to have wars with the person we sit next to, or the person that's just because they're a different religion. Because our hearts and our third eye, or our brow, are a place of knowing. And that's where I see the revolution. And that's where I see Buddhism bringing that revolution to make us aware of our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
And aware, therefore, of that
Yeah.
rainbow.
And basically what you're talking about is this golden age that we're in terms of the number of people that are waking up that's like that. At the same time, what I think what you have to temper that with, because all of us want to go in that direction, absolutely. But we also, yes, and at the same time, we have to be willing to step out into that world where there is that darkness and be willing to shine into that. And that to me is what's important. And we have to acknowledge what it is. One of my teachers, his name is Dr. Lobsang Ropke, once said, sometimes you have to call black, black. Okay? You can say, well, there's they're not relating to the light in the situation. And sometimes you need to go in and you need to confront. Sometimes you need to open certain things up. And the children that are light, and I'm sure I have children that are just like what you're describing, okay? And what I really tried to encourage them to do, and we would see how they would handle the education system and how other people would handle the education system. And it's a question of realizing that it's this full engagement that we have to be aware of. That we have to some extent, it's kind of like there's a saying in Buddhism that it's important, you cannot cover the world in leather. It's much better to put on a pair of shoes. All right? So to me, yes, that vision is very, very important. And that's what I want to see expanded. What I got, especially from the Eastern teachers, though, is that we have to be willing to step back from our emotions and look at the situation and go, we have to prepare ourselves in a variety of ways. One is maintaining our own light. The other is maintaining and trying to, in spite of the other influences that are around us, this binary world, there is the creative aspect of it as well. So how can we begin to keep moving things in this direction? And if we do not see it go that way, will we have enough emotional resilience to endure and stay in that light? That to me is what I'm concerned about. I don't feel comfortable. And I think what a lot of these Buddhist teachers were talking about was not wanting to get so caught up in the emotion of the awakening, the excitement. I think that there's, it's kind of like looking at how spiritual practice usually at some point brings you into the shadow reality, okay? And that to me is what's really important. That I had to really have it so that children develop the resilience to be able to look at something other than what's all good and say, that's crap, I don't want that. All right? So to me,
is allowing them to do that.
And to me, it's the preparedness that we need to do. And so definitely, to me, it is like the absolute truth of it is that yes, seeing the world in terms, it's kind of like the story in the Vimalakirti Sutra, where it said that when the Buddha attained enlightenment, what happened was, and Robert Thurman describes it, he says when a being attains enlightenment, the universe becomes a Buddhaverse, okay? And beings get attracted to it. It's kind of like when your cat wants to sit on your lap when you're meditating, okay? Or your kids know when you're in a good space and when you're not in a good space, all right? And it says the Buddha attains enlightenment, and all these beings came around because they wanted to see the world. And they went around, they were looking around this Buddhaverse, and there was people dying in squalor, and there was, this going on, and places that smelled and everything like that. And they went, this isn't an enlightened realm, this is terrible. And the Buddha said, this is how the ordinary person sees it. And then he did the earth witness gesture. And everything became gold. And he says, and this is actually how it is. Everything was alive and light. And he says, until we transform. And then he took his hands off the earth. And he said, this is how it's going to look. So to me, what it is how do you